Ubisoft is such an interesting company. Well, not the Ubisoft of nowadays, the mega company that owns...
Holy shit.
But the company that developed and or published...
Holy shit!
We have already covered Ubisoft on this channel actually, with Rocky, Rocky Legends and Rocky Balboa being covered in the Rocky Games video. And I have a big feeling we shall be covering Ubisoft again one day. It seems for a time they took any license they could and shat out games, but my damn did they make some good / interesting licensed games. When I think about Ubisoft licensed games, which is something I think about every time I'm in the shower, while I'm also thinking about why she won't answer my calls.
Hi, thank you for calling Nintendo.
What's on?
I think of the two wicked Naruto games, that ambitious Avatar game that fell rather flat for me, and Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. Which, by the way, is one of the best video game names I've ever seen. Now, this was released in 2005, and if you were a gamer during this time, you know what that means.
It was released on everything. Now the question is, which version to play? I understand that handheld versions have probably got your attention here, but for this video, I'm going to go for the Xbox 360 version of the game. And if you've played it, you know why. You know why. You know what. You know. Look, it was an easy 1000 gamer score, okay?
Yeah, if you're an achievement hunter, this game is an easy 1000 gamer score, so you can add that to your list of shame next to Avatar the Burning Earth and FIFA 06. It's crazy how some games like Avatar award you 1000 G for getting a 50-hit combo, which can be done 1 minute into the game, yet I only got 15 gamer score for beating Guitar Hero 3 with a controller on hard mode.
This game was only known for such a long time as an easy way to get 1000 gamer score, but this game really has always interested me. I played it back in 2006, and with 14 years of possible maturing under my belt, let's see if Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, has an awesome game hidden under its iconic name.
When researching this game, buzzwords like cinematic and immersive were thrown around more than myself during lunch break back at school, and although the cinematic term I wouldn't fully agree with, I would agree with immersive. From this gameplay alone, you can see that the only time something non-diegetic to the game appears on screen are subtitles and hints, both of which you can turn off in the menu. But besides that, this game is pretty much free of anything to ruin the immersion. Oh, apart from the blood splatters when you're injured actually, but I didn't mind them. And overall, I love this approach to game design. This game feels like it's really trying to immerse you in the experience, and this is reinforced by how the game plays. Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, is a loose retelling of the movie's story. It does hit similar story beats, but this is much more action-based than the movie, and this game, fun fact, is a game of two halves. Sure, you're seeing shooting gameplay right now, but there is another gameplay type here. I'd argue one half is better than the other, but we'll talk about the other half later.
And the ladies say I'm not good at teasing.
This game throws you in the deep end rather fast. After an FMV sequence, a boat crash and a jump scare, you're thrown into a firefight against some freaks of nature. Combat is rather stiff and basic, not helped by the fact that your character Jack really slowly turns, but I learned to really enjoy this combat style. Guns are weighty when they need to be, with firearms like the shotgun really packing power. It really is satisfying to see your adversaries on Skull Island ragdoll thanks to a well-placed shot, which is a nice feeling to have as your weapon set is rather thin since the game is set in 1933 and you're on an island in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. You're given three ways to defend yourself: guns, melee weapons, or just bashing the thing in front of you with whatever is in your hand, including nothing. When using a gun, you have no exact idea on how much ammo you have in a clip or how much you're carrying, and sure this is a gimmick, but I love this idea. Jack audibly calls out if he needs to reload and how much reserves he has.
It's okay. I got enough magazines. 3 magazines on backup. 3 magazines on backup.
When you check on your ammo during combat, it really feels like Jack is saying it to inform the people around him to keep them in the loop during a life or death situation, and little things like that kept me interested in an encounter. Admittedly, it is rather funny when you're just randomly saying how much ammo you have when you're walking along. The crew could be going on about how to get across a gap, and you just answer with something you weren't even asked about.
Hey, do you want your eggs boiled or fried? I don't know, about 4 inches?
One thing that caught me off guard is that your teammates actually have weight during gameplay. Sure, you'll give characters like Carl Denham and he's there to shoot a movie, and Anne is there because she's acting, and Hayes is there because he was on the ship, but they interact with the world around you. They react to things you do. For example, if you walk in front of Carl's camera when he's shooting, he'll comment on it.
Jack, I'm trying to shoot a movie. Hayes,
If the crew has a gun and you're out of ammo, they'll give it to you. You're able to check on them, they banter with you depending on the scene, almost like Uncharted, and they actually fight. They do an okay job too, which is good to hear, as if they do kick the bucket, you'll get a game over. This is used to an interesting effect in certain situations. Although there is always a worry about your team dying on you, there are times where you have to provide cover for them. And sure, this isn't very special in terms of gameplay, but it added variety to this around 5-hour campaign. This game never did drag for me, the short runtime admittedly helping with that fact. Each encounter was kept interesting by either having a variety of enemies to deal with varying levels of strength and annoyance, the weapons at hand, or the situation you're in. Sure, the story is about Carl shooting a movie as we already said, but it's really a quest to get off this island and the mofos you'll be taking down on your journey. Even if it is just creatures from the island that you fight and not any tribe people, but then again, in the actual movie, you never actually see them fight anyone properly from memory, so I guess that was a choice made early in pre-production, and I can't fault Ubisoft Montpellier for making that choice. One thing I did learn from my research is that this game has a fluid difficulty. Depending on how well you're doing, the game will throw more and tougher enemies at you. Meanwhile, if you die 3 times in a row at a certain encounter, the game will take it a bit easy on you. I looked at some gameplay and compared it with my experience, and this is actually true, which in my humble opinion is pretty dang cool. You may have noticed that at times I am holding either a spear or a bone, and that's because they are the melee weapons I mentioned earlier, and they are littered throughout the island. I'd argue to almost a negative effect. Perhaps it's because I have a long history of survival horror games, but I never really ran out of ammo, and this is because I relied on melee weapons when I could. I will say though that in battle you are leaving yourself at a disadvantage when you use a spear, as if you miss, you're open for a hit, and even if you poke them with the pointy end, you've got to be up in their grill, which once again leaves you free to be happy slapped. Heck, in certain situations, I would pick up a gun off the floor and use that gun and spears in tandem to save ammo for my main gun. Perhaps this is me just being smart for once in my life, I don't know. Speaking of smart, the team at Ubisoft thought of an interesting idea to keep the gameplay varied with the spears. Fire. Well, that and bugs. When coming across fire, you can light a spear or bone on fire, the latter of which looks kind of funny to me, which would not only burn enemies, but also surrounding areas for puzzles. Many times in this game you have to carry fire somewhere to burn away some greenery. Doing this would allow you to get to a lever to open a door or to find an exit. Again, nothing out of this world, and there is always some kind of water source to mess you up if you're not paying attention, but once again, it adds variety. Plus, the addition of fire allows you to get creative when fighting enemies in plant-dense environments. Sometimes I would poke the enemy with a fiery prod into some plants, only for the plants to burst into flames, engulfing the enemies and saving myself a couple of bullets that I'll probably never use anyway. The previously mentioned bugs allow you to bait foes away from you if you're in a situation you can't win, or you're trying to be Solid Snake up in this bitch, which sometimes you may need to do, as not every encounter is combat based, and even if it is, you can't always win. This game, apart from corridor shooting, has a nice variety of set pieces. This could be a horde mode sequence while waiting for a door to open, playing cat and mouse with some V-Raptors, navigating your way through a stampede of dinos who appear from the fog from Silent Hill, or even tackling some V-Rexes, shooting at these towering behemoths as your team gets away to safety. These set pieces almost act like boss battles. Almost because, well, Jack can't beat these big baddies. But somebody can.
You may have noticed that a certain gorilla has been missing from my discussion of Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, and as the head of the PJKKTOGOTN fandom, that simply will not do. I know I've been sucking this game's gorilla dong so far for the most part, but there is a reason I've held off about talking about Kong.
Kong's gameplay is introduced in the game like when Kong is introduced in the movie, after Anne has been captured and hung up as a sacrifice to the beast. Yes, I know I have been avoiding talking about the story, but let me sum up my feelings about the story to you right now. Kong's sections come down to brawling with a load of small fry, a few big baddies while protecting Anne, and some ropey as heck platforming. They're sadly underwhelming with some dodgy controls. It was never fun to play as Kong, even when you're in rage mode and you're snapping the necks of beasts who are trying to touch your lady. Which is a massive shame, as I can imagine some people picking up this game to experience playing as Kong and to see Kong's perspective during scenes such as the New York set piece. One of the most talked about sections of the 2005 movie is the New York segment, Kong being strapped for all to see in Gorkat before he breaks out in search of Anne. I personally really enjoy this sequence. Kong looks lost and confused in the Big Apple, fueled by love and anger, as he throws cars aside and chases Jack, culminating in the incredible set piece on top of the Empire State Building, where we get the iconic, if somewhat clunky line, "It was beauty killed the beast." As for this game's version of the scene,
It wasn't the airplanes. It was beauty killed the beast.
it feels very underdeveloped, not helped by the fact that it's rather short. You bash some people out, climb a building and swat some aeroplanes. And that's only if you get the timing down before you get gunned down. I will say though, I think playing somebody's death in a game can be a powerful moment. You see their last struggle as they fight for what they believe in, whether that be barking orders one last time to an underling, fulfilling their duties, or fighting for the one they hold dearest. The composition of this shot here really impressed me, and the fact that a howling sound started to play the more you got shot genuinely made me think that maybe there was a way out of here if I kept fighting as Kong. The time came, we saw more emotion from a gorilla than a human. He fell, but before he could hit the ground,
Well, that killed the moment.
this funny glitch here represents the New York finale and Kong's section as a whole. It's undercooked and underdeveloped. The streets are barren and empty with Jack all to do, and to be brutally honest, the Kong sections really are the worst part of the game. Seeing Kong as Jack? Awesome. It has a great sense of scale, and you feel powerless as this behemoth takes down dinosaurs while all you can do is throw pointy sticks at it and scratch it with bullets. But playing as Kong himself, for the reasons mentioned above and then some, I am grateful the sections are so short. One positive of Kong though, his thunderous roar when you enter rage mode is wicked. Sound design overall caught me off guard with how impressed I was. It's simple, minimalistic, and it really helps build the atmosphere that this game was going for. The horrific sound of the crawling bastards shuffling towards me behind my back or raptors roar always made me sharply turn fast and poke them until I could poke no more. And when the howling sound of the woman came fading in along with my screen darkening whenever I took too much damage, it always put a little fear and unease into me. Sometimes it really is the simple things that can make something more immersive. And the voice acting? It's the crew from the movie. And it sounds like they tried. Considering it's a game and it's been known for actors to phone it in for licensed games, it really was great to hear. Jack Black, for example, really gave it his all. Finally, for sound, this game has a score. It was done by an orchestra to try and give that cinematic feel, but for me, it was just kind of there. It served its purpose, but I can't exactly hum you any of the tunes. Oh, one random thing I loved about this game, if you were fighting with two different enemy types, they would at times fight each other, and then when one died, the other would then go and start eating the other's corpse. The island overall really did feel alive, strange, and gave off this feeling that I'm an outsider and I shouldn't be here.
Now, if you know me personally, you know that I love unlocking things at the end of a game. It feels like you've survived the journey and you're being rewarded for it. So, what do we get in this game?
Firstly, there are some video settings to toggle, such as making the game mirrored and changing the color profile. Which reminds me, the graphics and overall art design, although it could look rather bland a lot of the time due to a heavy green or blue color palette, served its purpose, and more than anything, it's trying to replicate what the film did. I was shocked though how nice the 360 version looked, seeing as it was released during the 360's launch window. Next, do you remember the ending bit with the planes and Kong swatting them at the air? Well, it turns out you can survive it. If you survive long enough, Jack comes to the rescue. And then you have to take down the planes trying to kill Kong. Do so, and Kong lives to tell the tale too. Well, we killed all the animals on the island, so he'll probably get lonely rather fast. To get this, you have to earn a score of 250,000 points. How do you get points? Well, if you replay the game, you can actually unlock more rewards, such as interviews with Peter Jackson and fellow Oscar winner Philippa Boyens, the aforementioned ending, and artwork.
Artwork is fine and all, it's great seeing the creative minds behind a game's vision of, say, a scene or a shot, but you're just looking at images on a screen. That's not very fun, is it? But for the sake of clarity, let's take a look.
Oh, hell yes. I love museums in games. It's so simple, but I really enjoy looking at the artwork in-game, looking at the models from every angle, and it's just a more creative way of doing something so simple. You're already playing a game, so why not view the pictures and models in-game? There are so few games that let you look at your rewards in this manner. There's Modern Warfare 2, and comment below if you can think of any more.
Now, as you can clearly see from my overcompensating for something-sized collection, King Kong the game was released to many different consoles. But what's the difference between all these?
Well, after playing them all briefly for myself and watching El Analista de Bits' video, the only difference between the console games is the graphics. It seems there's no cut content or anything like that, which is pretty dang cool. One funny note though about the 360 version is at launch, like many 360 games, it was made for HD televisions, leaving the image on a standard definition TV very dark and making the game not very fun to play. Dead Rising 1 was another popular example of this. As a result, Ubisoft recommended fans buy the Xbox original version until they released a patch for the 360 version, which they eventually did. There is a PC version which nowadays is a ball ache to run, which looks to be based off the 360 version of the game. What's interesting is there's a re-release of this game called the Gamers Edition for the PC and PS2. This version, on top of running on modern PCs, came with a bunch of extra goodies, with the main event for me being a behind-the-scenes look at the game. I love this stuff. I was telling my little brother recently about the commentaries in Valve games, and he was so confused why games would have commentaries in them.
I can be reached at gaben@valvesoftware.com.
Any behind-the-scenes stuff is so appreciated by me. I love learning about the craft from the people who made what I just consumed. Heck, it's the main reason I still buy Blu-rays. I want those behind the scenes. Overall, I'm really impressed with Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's a great weekend game. You know, a nice short game you can bash out over the weekend and have a really good time doing so. Sure, it's simplistic in many ways when it comes to game design, but I kind of like it even more for that reason. And the fact it was made in a year and a half, something I learned from the behind the scenes featurette, makes me appreciate this game a little bit more. And yes, Gamerscore Hunters, it is an easy 1000 Gamerscore too.
Well, there we go. I have truly validated myself as the leader of the PJKKTOGOTM fandom. But I'm kind of scared. The mean Metacritic score for the console versions plus the PC version of King Kong the game is 80 out of 100. Meanwhile, the handheld versions are 48 out of 100. So come back next week where we'll see if Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, on handheld really deserved all the hate it got. And the ladies say I'm not good at teasing. And the ladies say I'm not good at teasing. And the ladies say I'm not good at teasing. And the ladies say I'm not good at teasing. And the ladies say I'm not good at teasing.